Hello everyone, this is Latifa Said. I'm a customs trainer at Kesra. I'll be taking you through valuation, and I also train other courses at Kesra, rules of origin, risk management, international trade, and other areas in customs. And under this course, valuation or customs valuation means we are going to value goods, and valuing of goods valuation comes from value, and value means the worth of the thing or a product or a good, because you'll find that what amount you're willing to pay for that product because of its worthiness. You might find that maybe a pen is very important to a student, but maybe a pen is not very important to a matatu driver. So you find that gauging from how the worthiness of that product is viewed, then you'll find that people will be willing to pay for those goods. So basically, valuation, even though we have said its value and we expect that we'll be doing a lot of mathematics, calculations, but for this course, you'll find that we'll be far from doing a lot of calculation, because already you'll find that we have pre-populated templates that will help us to do the calculations. So you don't have to worry that how do I add 1 plus 20 plus 30 so that I can be able to get 51. Our main worry in valuation will be, why are you adding this 1? Why are you adding this 20? Why didn't you maybe subtract 5? So our main focus in valuation will be more on the concept of why we are adding or subtracting, or we need to uplift these values than doing the actual mathematics. Doing the actual mathematics will be kind of the icing on the cake. Still, the cake can be eaten even without the icing. So welcome to valuation. And the first session basically will be an introduction on what we're going to cover during the training. So the objective of the course, so the whole course, what do we want to achieve at the end of the course? So at the end of the course, we expect that we are able to understand the role of customs valuation in clearance of imported goods. Do we need to know customs valuation so that we can clear imported goods? So at the end of the course, I hope we'll be able to understand that. Understand the general principles of the agreement. So that's the agreement on customs valuation. So the agreement on customs valuation will be our main reference point when we are valuing goods and also for customs valuation purposes. And then our focus for this course, it will not be just presentation and recordings. We'll be discussing case laws and case studies. So those case laws will come from regionally and also globally to see how customs valuation case are being solved and what concepts are brought forward from those cases. So you'll find that we will not just focus on cases that have occurred in Kenya, but also cases regionally and also globally, so that we can understand. And you'll find that you're wondering, why are we going to be looking at global cases? Well, you'll find that in national legislation, we have provisions talking about customs valuations. But we'll find that customs valuation borrows heavily from the agreement on customs valuation. Customs valuation. So even though we may be looking at a case law, maybe that has happened in European Union, or maybe it has happened in Uganda, but you'll find that it will heavily borrow from the agreement on customs valuation with reference to their national legislation or regional legislation, depending on which country you are looking at in relation to the dispute or the cases that have arisen. So as earlier have said, that our focus will be more on the concept than calculation, because we have those templates that will help us to do the basic calculation in valuation, but for us is to understand the concept, such that when you maybe uplift a value, you will be able to tell the importer or convince the importer why you uplifted that value. So the calculation part is not the main focus, but it's still there that we'll need to look at. So outline of the course, so how are we going to do this? So first, we look at what the course entails. So we'll have recordings, and that will be my work. So I'll make sure we have recordings. And these recordings will at least have around 6, I'll try to have 6 sessions of recording. So you'll have around 6 videos that you're going to go through. So when I do the recordings, then your work will be to listen. So listening is from your side, listening, and maybe take notes so that you are able to grasp the concept that we are talking about. And then we look at case laws and case studies so that we can be able to apply the different concepts. And then we have the 6 recording sessions, and then we have 6, you can say, live sessions, not physically online, where we are going to discuss those case laws and case studies. And when we are discussing those case law and case studies, we are going to mirror the agreement on customs valuation to our legislation. But since Kenya is a member of the East African community, then you will find that we are going to marry the articles in the agreement to the regional legislation, that is the East African Community Customs Management Act 2004. So we are going to, the recordings mostly will focus on the agreement, and then our discussion will try to mirror the concept we had discussed in the recordings to ECMA, so that we are able to marry the two. So we have the regional legislation that is applicable in Kenya, and then we know the global application of the agreement, which is, you can say, any case law that we look at, you'll find that whatever it's going to reference back is already kind of mirroring whatever is in the agreement on customs valuation. And lastly, what the course entails, which I call the bare minimum, we're going to learn from each other. So you will learn from me, and also I'll learn from you. So it will not be just the recordings and you listen and then you go, but also from the discussion, I can be able to learn from you, and also you are going to learn from me. And also not only in relation to customs valuation, but in relation on generally how to deliver trainings. So I think that explains what we're going to be doing. I think the discussion will form part of, maybe you can say, interaction. So to encourage interaction during those discussions, I can just say that I will kind of maybe allocate some 5 to 10 marks of cut marks as part of when you interact during discussion. When we have the live sessions, then that's where you are going to get some extra marks in relation to the cut, so that we encourage to participate during the discussion. So the other thing is case laws and case studies, as earlier I have mentioned. So we'll have case laws both regionally from within the country, especially the ones that have reached the tax appeal tribunals. So those are the cases that we'll try to look at in relation to customs valuation, so tax appeal tribunals. So there are some cases that are there that we look at. So when we are going to read the case studies, remember we are going to be mirroring them from the agreement and also from the East African Community Customs Management Act 2004. So we are able to see how the agreement and the regional legislation that we apply in Kenya marry, but mostly when we get to the point of where maybe we'll be dealing with tax appeal tribunal, then our main reference will be ECMA. So when you get to the ground and you need to be maybe to defend your stand why you use this value and not the other one, so the main reference will be ECMA. That's why I'm insisting that when we are going to have the discussion, we'll be mirroring the articles in the Agreement on Customs Valuation to ECMA 2004. So we'll get the overview of the Agreement on Customs Valuation, and then we'll see where does ECMA 2004 come in relation to customs valuation. So you'll find that in the agreement, there's an article where it's kind of, you can say, insist that members should be able to put the methods of valuation in their national legislation. And depending on how the members operate, they may be countries that have national legislation, or they might be countries that are in regional integration. So you find that for them, they may be applying a regional legislation. But all in all, you'll find that customs valuation is the one of the WTO agreement that is, you can say, uniformly applied all over the world. So even when we look at those case laws, maybe from other regions, you'll find that whatever they'll mention is basically from the agreement, but marrying their national or regional legislation. So our main reference point, so we're going to look at where are we going to be getting our information that we're going to use during the discussion, where we are going to maybe just peruse, see what it says about one issue or another. So our main reference will be the WTO Agreement on Customs Valuation. So you cannot say customs valuation without referring to the agreement. And sometimes you'll find that the agreement is called the agreement on the implementation of Article 7 of GATT 1994. So you'll find that sometimes the agreement on customs valuation will be referred to as agreement on the implementation of Article 7 of GATT 1994. And then we have ECMA 2004. Remember, I've said that you need to, you can say, domesticate the agreement into your national legislation or regional legislation if you're applying a regional laws. And then we have the I know platform. So the I know platform is not if you know, you know, but the I know platform, you can see the icon. So remember, you can go to KRA Hub and you'll be able to access the I know. So there are a lot of cases, there are a lot of articles, there are a lot of documents relating to customs valuation. And then we have WTO website. Remember, the agreement on customs valuation is a WTO agreement. So you can get more information from there. We have the World Customs Organization website, so it's also another website. You may also find that the Technical Committee on Customs Valuation, part of the membership is from the World Customs Organization, or the CCC, Customs Cooperation Council, as WCO is known, you can say legally in their legal kind of documentation. And then we have the Kenyan law, so website. So that one you'll be able to guess the case laws, and maybe you may kind of be adventurous and see maybe if you can get more in relation to customs valuation. If you get time, you can read, and then we'll see if when we get time to discuss, you can bring out any issues maybe from the case laws that you are able to peruse by yourself. And then we have the handbook on the WTO Customs Valuation Agreement. Here it is. It's available at Kesra. So if you are a hard copy person, Kesra, you can find it at Kesra. It's there. So those are basically, you can say, referencing to during the customs valuation course. And if maybe there's any other place or a physical book that you know and it can be able to assist us to get information, feel free to share during the discussion so that, remember we said, we are going to learn to each other. So it's not only me that is going to pump information to you, but also we are going to be exchanging information, learning from each other, and also maybe sharing our experience in relation to customs valuation. So introduction, so definition of customs value. So as earlier I said, that value may be defined as worth or desirability or purchasing power equivalent to a thing, which may be substituted or exchanged for a thing. So when you see an item and you see that this item is going to be beneficial to me, then you are able to see how much I'm going to be able to part with. If maybe you may not have maybe some monetary exchange that you want, maybe you don't have any money, but you may be willing to exchange that thing since it's worthy to you with something else. So you'll find that value basically will mean worth. And you'll find that different items may be valued differently to people who are maybe looking at that item, because you'll find that this marker pen may not be kind of useful maybe to a student in grade 3, but you'll find that it's very useful to me. So when you want maybe to value or to ask maybe that grade 3 pupil how much they are willing to pay, they may not be willing to pay as much as what I'm going to pay, not because I have a lot of money, but because I know it's worth, because I need it to be able to conduct these recordings and also to be able to train. So you'll find that value has different worth depending on who is looking. And if we are not able to control this, you'll find that if goods are imported into the country and there is no clear rule on how we value the goods, then you'll find that there's going to be a lot of trouble. A customs officer is here. They are supposed to collect revenue, so they're not going to kind of value the goods very cheap or at a lower cost, because they know that if I value those goods at a lower cost, I will not be able to meet my revenue target. So you'll find that if there are no rules on how values of goods imported into the country are going to be applied, then you'll find that there will be a lot of misunderstanding from the customs officers, from the clearing agent, from the importers, because you'll find that the way I view an item is not the same way another person views the item. So you'll find that there must be some rules that will ensure that when I'm valuing this pen, I'm not going to be talking as a lecturer or as a trainer or maybe as a grade 3 pupil, but you'll find that I'm valuing this pen objectively. That when I'm valuing this pen and I give that value and it's supposed to be charged duty, then whoever is the importer is going to be willing to pay, but not so willing, because remember, no one is willing to part for money, especially for paying off of duty. But for the willing in court that I don't have, otherwise I want my goods to be released to me, then you'll find that they'll be willing to pay the duty so that they can have the goods released. So remember, if there are no rules, everyone will be in trouble. So the term customs value also reflects that worth by the physical movement of goods from one country to another, used to calculate customs duties or other taxes, especially those taxes that are collected at the point of entry when the goods are imported into the country. So history of development of customs valuation. So there have been a lot of different rounds of negotiations in WTO that kind of accumulated into the Agreement on Customs Valuation in 1995. So different rounds of negotiation discussed different areas in relation to trade. And finally, we have, you can say, the WTO Agreement on Implementation of Article 7 of the GATT 1994, which is the WTO Agreement on Customs Valuation. So different negotiations highlighting the need to have some rules when we are valuing goods for purposes of customs valuation. So objective of the agreement, so preamble to the rules on customs valuation. So basically, preamble means, you can say, kufungua roho. What do we want to achieve when we have this agreement? So you find that the preamble highlights what the members of the WTO wanted to achieve with this agreement, maybe possibly how they wanted to achieve it, and also if there's any need to put up special measures maybe for those countries that are still developing and least developed countries. So preamble basically means what the member wanted to do in the agreement. So to further the objective of GATT 1994 and secure additional benefits for the international trade of developing countries, so you'll find that the objective of GATT 1994, there was need also to kind of have some rules in relation to ensure that developing countries are able to get benefit from international trade, to provide greater uniformity and certainty, as I've mentioned, that the Agreement on Customs Valuation is the agreement that is being applied uniformly for over 184 countries. So 184 countries, those customs administration in World Customs Organization, and remember we have over 166 WTO members. So you'll find that it's almost like 90% of the world apply the rules of customs valuation uniformly. So you don't say that Kenyan customs officers may be valuing goods very highly. Maybe when you go to another country, you'll find that they value cheaply. You'll find that the methods are uniformly applied. It's only now there are certain aspects of cost or expenses that are incurred in relation to getting the goods to the import country that may be added into the cost of the goods, which may bring some differences. But you'll find that customs valuation is applied uniformly across the world. And also to have a fair, uniform, and neutral system that precludes the use of arbitrary or fictitious customs value. So you'll find that fair. So we rely on the transaction value of the goods. Or you'll find that in this course we'll be referring to TV. So TV, not the 65-inch TV or 75-inch TV, but transaction value. So fair, so are we able to rely on the transaction value? And this transaction value, you'll find that the importer will be declaring this value, the TV. So is it fair? So first, the importer is given that chance to make a declaration. What is the value that they had paid for the goods? So it's fair, uniformly, so we still rely on uniformly. So another importer comes in, still the TV is our first point of reference. The value that they're going to provide is the one that we'll be working with. But you'll find that as we look at the case laws, you will find that people are trying to go, they're going to try to justify why maybe they were given a higher value while another person was not given the same value. But you'll find that it's still uniformly applied, but depending on certain aspects that were either not divulged when the importer was making the declaration. That's why maybe those values may be uplifted for one importer and not uplifted for another importer. But all in all, you'll find that the customs valuation is applied uniformly because the rules are the same. Are there some aspects that were hidden during the declaration? Or there are other information that was discovered when the document that were given during declaration, some information was found in those documents. So you find that it's also a neutral system. So it doesn't consider if you are who is who. The way customs valuation is applied is supposed to be the same way. So it's not, it's neutral. So today you come, it's a Monday. We are still tired from the weekend. So I want kind of to start off on a good footing. So I clear the goods. Maybe I give a value that is low. I collect the revenue. Come on Wednesday, I've realized I've not maybe kind of collected any amount. So I'm kind of under pressure. I need to collect revenue. So what I'm going to do today, whoever is importing, I'm going to apply high value so that I collect more revenues. And then come Friday, niko na plan, singa. So when you have a plan, it means you want to go home early. So you find that maybe now you are in a hurry. So whoever comes today, the value that is going to be given to the goods will be low value. But you'll find that customs valuation does not care whether it's a Monday, so you are still trying to find your bearing, whether it's a Wednesday, you need to collect more revenue, or whether it's a Friday and you want to go to a road trip, so you are going to give low values. Customs valuation is applied, it's a neutral system, so you are not going to say that depending on the day, this is the values that I'm going to use for the same consignment. So we are still opening our heart with the preamble. So the basis for valuation should be, to the greatest extent possible, the transaction value of the goods being valued. So the TV that I've talked about, transaction value, is the value that the importer will be declaring when making their declaration. So declared by the importer. So as much as possible, we're going to rely on this value declared by the importer, the TV. So are we able to rely on the value that has been declared by the importer? So that's transaction value. So customs value should be based on simple and equitable criteria consistent with the commercial practices. So you find that when we are applying the customs valuation method, so you'll find that is it simple and also consistent with commercial practices. So you'll find that there are different commercial practices or different aspects that will affect trade, especially international trade, maybe considering emerging issues. You can say different happenings or events in different countries. So you find that we have to keep in mind some of those events happening worldwide that may affect the prices of the goods in the country of importation. And then valuation procedure should be of general application without distinction between sources of supply. So basically, remember, we said concept, not calculations. So are we able to apply the same procedures regardless of where the goods are coming from? And then valuation procedures should not be used to combat dumping. So, sorry. So in case maybe it's believed goods are being dumped in the country, so we are not going to say that these goods are going to be valued higher. So we uplift the values to a higher value because these goods are believed to be dumped. So when you see dumped, it means that we need to show that actually these goods are being dumped in our country and they are causing material injury to our local industries. So in case we are able to establish these goods are being dumped, then our result will not be valuing the goods higher. What our result is going to be to do anti-dumping. So we apply anti-dumping duties. So we are not going to use valuation to say that since these goods are being dumped here, we're going to value the goods higher. We are going to resort to anti-dumping duty in order to act as the trade remedies against dumping. So the agreement on customs valuation is divided into different parts. We can say covering different areas. Otherwise, as you look at maybe legal documents, you'll find that they have different parts. You may find there might be articles or section covering especially definition of terms, because you'll find that a term in one legal document may mean something else in the normal lives or even in another legal document. So sometimes there's need to be able to contextualize that term in relation to the legal document that you're looking at. So structure of the World Trade Organization Agreement on Customs Valuation. So we have part one is on the rules on customs valuation. So how you're supposed to value the goods for customs purposes. So you find that there are different methods of valuing the goods. So we look at the different methods, highlight what kind of the main thing in that article in relation to the methods of valuation. And then part two is administration, consultation, and dispute settlement. So dispute is still part of, you can say, our existence, whether we are looking at our workplaces, looking at our homes or relationship. So dispute settlement is there, and you'll find that it's no exception in relation to customs valuation. So you'll find that there's dispute settlement, and you'll find that also countries may enter into a dispute in relation to customs valuation, and not just importer and customs officer or the clearing agent who is representing the importer. And then have part three, which is special and differential treatment. So this is in relation to those members that are still developing and LDCs. So you find that some of them may not be able to fully implement the agreement. So you'll find that they may require some assistance in able to implement the agreement. So some of the assistance may be in relation to capacity building, maybe training of the customs officers in those countries so they are able to implement the agreement. And then part four is the final provisions, and then you have the three annexes. So annex one is on interpretative note. So you find that the interpretative note explains some further some of the articles, especially in part one, and also give some, you can say, some basic examples that will be able to elaborate about the articles. And then you have the Technical Committee on Customs Valuation, and lastly we have miscellaneous provisions. So that's the structure of the World Trade Organization Agreement on Customs Valuation. So rules on customs valuation. So methods of valuation is from Article 1 to 8. So you'll find that Article 1 is the main article talking about, remember the TV that the importer will declare when they're making their declaration for customs purposes. So Article 1 is insistence on the transaction value. But you'll find that transaction value, you can say, may not be sufficient to be a value to be used for customs as a customs value. So may not be sufficient to be used as a customs value because there may be other costs that may be incurred before, you can say pre-importation, so before the goods reach the import country, so pre-importation. So there might be costs that are incurred pre-importation that may need to be included in the transaction value. Or there may be conditions that will make customs not to use the transaction value even though the importer has declared that value. So Article 1 will give the, you can say, headway for customs to use the transaction value, but you'll find that Article 1 is supposed to be read with Article 8. So Article 8 will focus on these costs that may have been incurred, but they are not included in the transaction value and they were incurred pre-importation. So pre-importation means that before the goods reach the first point of entry into the import country. So first point of entry, first point of entry into import country. So when the goods land at the first point of entry, then that's where the costs end in relation to if there are any components that may need or any costs that may need to be included in transaction value, they stop at the first point of entry into import country. A good example is when maybe the goods are coming from China to Kenya. So they are coming by ship. So when they get to Mombasa port, so that will be our first point of entry into import country. So the goods are imported into Kenya from China. They're coming by ship. So Mombasa will be the first point of entry into the import country. So all the costs incurred prior to the goods arriving to Mombasa will form part of the transaction value. And you'll find that in case this importer wants their goods to be cleared in Nairobi, maybe at ICD, Embakasi, then you'll find that the cost incurred between Mombasa and Nairobi will not form part of the transaction value because these costs are incurred post-importation. Already the goods have been imported into the country. So these costs are going to be post-importation and they do not form part of the transaction value. So only those costs incurred pre-importation are the ones that may need to be included in the transaction value if they have not been included because of Article 8 of the agreement. So that's Article 1. So Article 1, you can say, gives the permission for us to use transaction value, but under certain conditions that are put there, and also you will find that we may need to look at Article 8 for the adjustment in order to get the customs value of the goods for purposes of levying duties and also So for purposes of levying duties and other charges that are charged during importation. Article 2 talks about the transaction value method of identical goods. So transaction value of identical goods. So when the TV that was declared in the first article, maybe it did not meet the required conditions for us to use the transaction value, or there were other aspects that made us not to accept the transaction value that was declared. Maybe there were no documentation, or the documentation that were provided were forged, or maybe there was no sale. So it means we are not going to use transaction value. So what we're going to do is we'll use transaction value of identical goods, which is under Article 2. So transaction value of identical goods, you'll find that this data is available in country of importation. So the country of importation, for goods that have been previously imported into the country. So country of importation, previously imported goods. So this data that we have as customs officer for goods or identical goods that were previously imported into the country. So we'll see what identical goods means when we get to the methods themselves, but this one is just highlighting what to expect. So the data is available in the country of importation, but for previously imported goods. So you go back to, it will give around 3 months duration. So you go back up to 3 months and see, is there another person who imported the same item within the 3 months? Then you will be able to look at that value, you can say, as forming the basis for the customs value. But you'll find that there will be still some adjustment that may be accorded to that value, so that that value is able to be used as a customs value. So for transaction value of identical goods, you'll find that those goods have similar characteristics, perform the same function, minor differences like color will not exclude us from using that item to value the item that has been imported now. So minor differences can be ignored. So minor differences is ignored, like color. So you are valuing a motor vehicle that was previously imported. Maybe we have a motor vehicle that was imported maybe 1 month ago, and then we have an identical motor vehicle that we are trying to value, since we did not accept the transaction value declared by the importer. So you'll find that we are going to rely on that vehicle that was imported 1 month ago. But if maybe the vehicle that we are valuing is blue in color, and when we go to our database, the motor vehicles that we have are maybe black or pink, but still they have the same characteristic, they perform the same function, then that does not mean that we cannot use the value for that black motor vehicle to value our blue motor vehicle that has been imported now. And you'll find that if we are not able to get identical goods in our databases, it does not mean that we are not going to value the goods. We'll move to the next article, which will give us the next method. So the next method is transaction value of similar goods. So similar goods.